Wildlife law enforcers from Africa and Asia are joining forces to crack down on poachers and black market dealers.
Training efforts aim to improve cross-border investigations, especially between Africa and China, which is the world's biggest consumer of illegal wildlife.
Many of these smuggled animals and animal parts go through Thailand or Vietnam on their way to China. We talked to our Bangkok correspondent Daniel Schearf about it, and here is what he told us.
There's a big demand for poaching of ivory, rhino horns, all other kinds of exotic animals in China and other parts of Asia. And so, whenever there's demand, somebody's going to try and fill it. And because it's a business, it attracts, it's a very organized business, so it attracts organized crime. And there certainly is a lot of money to be made. So they're moving in quite strongly and trying to make as much as they can, and that's why we're seeing such a big loss of wildlife, especially in Africa.
Wildlife investigators from across Africa and Asia are discussing ways to crack down on wildlife poaching and trafficking gangs. Adan Alio represents a regional enforcement group of 7 African countries.
As the Agreement Task Force, we really want to see where we can work with the Asian countries and China especially, and African countries together to exchange information, to law enforcement information to fight this illegal trade.
Much of the smuggled wildlife goes through Thailand or the border with Vietnam and ends up in China as traditional medicine, trinkets, or trophies. With African elephant populations declining from poaching, anti-smuggling cooperation like this between China and Africa is vital.
Can you talk about some of the parts, these animal parts that the poachers are after? It's not just the rhino horns and elephant tusks, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, those are kind of the big name items that we see. And of course, those are the ones that there's a lot of attention on because of the fact that so many elephants are being killed by poachers. So many rhinos are being killed by poachers. And they go for very high prices per kilo. But on the more pedestrian scale, pangolins, the scaly anteaters, these are considered a bit of a delicacy and a medicinal item in Chinese culture. You also have certain kinds of exotic turtles and lizards, snakes, that kind of thing. So it's something that's a very widespread problem. But it's not just the big high number items. You also see it on a lower scale.
And what about the sale of the animals' genitals? I saw that in your reporting, and that was something that I found surprising.
Yeah, it's one of the things in Chinese culture in particular. There's a belief that if you eat certain parts of an animal, then it will be good for the health of the human in their corresponding part. So consequently, you see a lot of belief in traditional Chinese culture that if you eat parts of an animal's penis or testicles, then it can help with your fertility. So this is something that's stressed quite a bit, and consequently, we do see very high prices for those particular animal parts.
Can you tell us about this international effort to train people to combat poachers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the good news, is that we are seeing increasing cooperation between countries internationally, not just in Asia, but we're also seeing the United States and countries in Africa trying to team up together to see what kind of information they can exchange and trying to crack down on some of these organized crime groups. And one of the things that we discovered in the course of the training class that we were covering was that China has actually been making some fairly forward strides.
Putting several hundred million RMB into their budget for their post along the Vietnam and China border to interdict the smugglers there. Vietnam is attacking it on the Vietnam side, China on the China side. So there is progress.
Also, we have to remember that the U.S. is also a major consumer of products in general. And that includes wildlife. So it's also a concern of U.S. investigators that they're able to try and crack down on this. And part of that is training and getting funding out there for international training to try and prevent the trade in general.